The sky above Carnice was dark and heavy. Clouds moved slowly like old machines, and the wind carried the smell of metal and dust. In the center of the great stone court stood Ryan, the only human on this alien planet. Chains held his hands behind his back. His clothes were torn. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with quiet fire. All around him, the alien leaders of the Varn Dominion sat high on their silver thrones. Their long robes dragged on the floor, their faces hidden under sharp helmets. They looked down at Ryan like he was nothing, just a small creature who didn't know his place. A tall alien. The High Judge stood and spoke in a cold voice. "Ryan of Earth, you are guilty. You refused our orders. You stood against the law. You gave food to the Rin children when we said no. You fought a guard. You are a problem." "I stood for what was right," Ryan said. His voice was strong and clear. The judge's face twisted. "With anger, right? You are weak. You are human. And humans were brought here to obey, not to speak." Ryan said nothing. He only stared back. The judge pointed one long finger. "We will not waste a cell on you. Instead, we send you to Black Hollow. There, you will meet the dread beast. No one has returned from there. You will not either." A cruel laugh spread through the court. Some aliens clapped, others smiled. To them, this was fun. Another useless human sent to die. Guards pulled Ryan away. They dragged him through cold halls and into a large metal ship. Inside, no one spoke. He sat alone, the chains gone now, but his arms sore. The ship flew for hours. Mountains passed below like broken teeth. Rivers of ash cut through the land. Then they reached the edge, the forbidden zone, Black Hollow. "Step out," the pilot said without looking at him. Ryan took one deep breath and jumped down. The door closed behind him, and the ship flew away without another word. He stood there, looking at the land ahead. Black Hollow. It was a valley of shadows, black rocks, and dry air. The sky above it seemed darker than the rest of the world. Nothing moved. No birds, no insects, no wind. Just silence. A heavy, thick silence. Ryan looked around. No weapons, no food. No tools. Just him and the clothes on his back. Still, he didn't panic. He had trained for worse. He had survived worse. On Earth, he had been a soldier, a tracker, a survivor. The Varn thought sending him here would kill him. Maybe it would. But he wasn't going to die without a fight. He began to walk. Each step felt heavy. The ground was sharp and uneven. Strange marks were cut into the rocks, claw marks, deep and wide. Too wide for any normal animal. These were the signs of the beast. The one they called the Dread Beast. Some stories said it was a monster with 10 eyes and teeth like blades. Others said it was a shadow that moved like smoke and killed without sound. Ryan didn't care about the stories. He knew one thing. If the beast could bleed, it could be tracked. And if it could be tracked, he could survive. He moved slowly, carefully, studying the ground. Hours passed. The sky grew darker. Somewhere far away, he heard a sound, a deep, low growl, like thunder under the earth. He stopped, listened. Nothing. He moved again, this time toward a group of rocks that looked like they could be shelter. There, he built a small fire with dry roots and sharp stones. The fire was weak, but warm. He sat beside it, thinking, why had he helped those children? Why had he spoken up? Because someone had to. Because silence was the same as giving up. And humans didn't give up. He looked up at the sky. Stars began to appear. Strange, green stars, not like the ones back home. A soft wind blew past his face. Then he heard it again. The growl. Closer now. Ryan stood quiet and ready. His heart beat faster. He picked up a long piece of wood and held it like a spear. The growl turned into a deep snarl. Then he saw it. 2 glowing red eyes appeared in the darkness. Huge, unblinking. the dread beast stepped into the light. It was bigger than a horse, with black scales that shimmered like oil. Its body was long and strong. Its claws were thick and sharp. Its mouth opened slightly, showing long, curved teeth. But what shocked Ryan most wasn't the size or the teeth. It was the eyes. There was something behind them. Intelligence. This wasn't a wild animal. It was something more. Something that had been hunted, hurt, and left alone too long. Something that remembered. The beast sniffed the air. Took one step forward. Ryan didn't move. Another step. The fire crackled softly. Then the beast growled once more. Not loud. Not angry, but curious. Ryan lowered his wooden spear. He knew fear. But this time, he didn't feel it. He felt interest. He didn't run. And the beast didn't attack. The two stared at each other in silence. One human, one monster. Both forgotten. Both left to die. But this was not the end. It was the beginning. Survival in black. Hollow. The night passed slowly in Black Hollow. Ryan didn't sleep. He sat beside the weak fire, eyes fixed on the beast. It stayed just outside the circle of light, watching him in silence. It didn't growl again. It didn't attack. It simply sat there, like a guardian or a shadow with a mind of its own. Morning came. The sky turned a pale gray. The fire had died. Ryan's body was cold and sore, but he didn't move too quickly. The beast was still there. It stood up slowly, gave one last look, then disappeared behind the rocks. Ryan let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He had survived the first night, but he knew it was only the beginning. He began to explore the land during the day, searching for water, shelter, and anything he could use. The ground was dry and cracked, but he found a small stream hidden between sharp stones. The water was clean and cold. He drank slowly, careful not to take too much. He found dry grass and long sticks. He built a stronger fire and shaped a spear with a sharp rock. Days passed like this. Every day, the beast came back. It never attacked. It watched. Sometimes it stayed for hours, sometimes only minutes. Ryan began to study it. It had a deep scar across its left shoulder. One of its legs seemed slower than the others. Its breathing was rough at times. It was injured. Ryan started leaving food near the fire. Small animals he caught with traps. He left them and walked away. The beast always came after dark. It took the food and vanished again. A strange trust was starting to grow. One evening, Ryan stayed closer than before. He sat by the fire while the meat was still warm. The beast stepped into the light, slower than usual. It didn't growl. Its red eyes looked tired. Ryan spoke softly, more to himself than to the creature. "I don't know what they did to you," he said, "but I can guess. We've both been thrown away, haven't we?" The beast sniffed the meat, looked at Ryan, then ate. Ryan didn't move. He didn't blink. He just watched. That night, the beast didn't leave right away. It sat across from Ryan. The fire burned low between them. Two broken souls in a broken land. Ryan finally said, "I'm going to call you Bran." The beast said nothing, of course. But it didn't seem to mind. Days turned to weeks. Ryan and Bran started to understand each other. Ryan learned Bran's patterns, how he moved, how he hunted when he rested. He never tried to control the creature. He followed, observed, listened. And Bran allowed it. One day, Ryan found Bran lying near the rocks, breathing heavily. The wound on his leg looked worse. Ryan approached slowly, step by step. "I want to help," he said gently. Bran growled low, warning him, but not with anger. It was fear. It didn't want to be touched. It didn't want to be hurt again. Ryan knelt beside him and showed his hands. No weapons, just this. He held up a leaf covered in thick sap from a healing plant he had found earlier. Bran stared at him. Then, slowly, carefully, Ryan placed the sap on the wound. Bran didn't move. He didn't bite. He trusted him. From that day, something changed. Bran no longer waited in the shadows. He walked beside Ryan during the day. They hunted together, moved together. Ryan learned how to read his signs, the tilt of his head, flick of his tail, the deep sound in his chest when danger was near. They became a team. At night, Ryan would speak to him. "They think humans are weak," he said one night, "but they don't know us. They don't know what we become when we have nothing to lose." Bran growled softly, as if agreeing. Ryan smiled. "You and me. We're not broken, we're unbroken." Back in the Varn city, something was changing too. The Varn leaders were not at peace. It had been over 3 weeks. No body had been found. No bones. No blood. Whispers spread through the towers. "Is he still alive? That's impossible. He's human. He's stubborn. If he returns, what does that mean for us?" Some feared what would happen if Ryan came back. Not because they thought he would attack, but because others would follow him. The Dominion ruled through fear. If fear broke, so would their control. One cold morning in Black Hollow, Ryan stood at the edge of a cliff. Bran stood beside him, tail swaying like a flag. Below them was the path back to the Varn city. "We're not ready," Ryan said. "Not yet." He looked at Bran, "but soon." Bran gave a deep snort and lowered his head. Ryan placed his hand on the beast's rough neck. "I'm going to ride you." Bran looked at him sharply. Ryan smiled. "I know, sounds crazy. But I think you're faster than anything they've seen. And if we go back, we're going back loud." He built a seat out of ropes and cloth. It wasn't perfect, but it held. He climbed on Bran's back. The beast shook once, testing his weight, then stood tall and proud. Ryan held tight. "Let's go." With a roar, Bran sprinted forward, a shadow in a storm. Crashing through the valley. Ryan laughed for the first time in weeks. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were preparing for war. The unthinkable bondust flew behind them as Bran raced across the valley. His feet pounded the ground like thunder. Ryan held tightly to the ropes he had tied around Bran's shoulders. The ride was wild, fast, and dangerous, but Ryan never smiled wider. For the first time since being exiled, he didn't feel like a prisoner. He felt free. Bran moved like he had waited his whole life to run again. The old wound on his leg was healing. His strength was returning, and his speed was beyond anything Ryan had seen before. No vehicle, no animal, no machine moved like him. They trained every day. Ryan learned to hold balance well. Bran jumped over broken stones and sharp hills. He learned to steer gently, never forcing, only guiding. Bran responded with trust. They were not beast and rider anymore. They were partners. One evening, Ryan stopped near the cliffs and set camp. The fire flickered gently. Bran lay beside it, resting his large head near Ryan's feet. Ryan looked up at the stars, cold and distant. "Do you think they still laugh?" he asked softly. "The ones who sent me here?" Bran gave a low growl, like a deep breath through his chest. "I want to see their faces," Ryan continued. "When we walk back into their city, when they see you. When they realize I didn't just survive, I became stronger." Bran didn't speak, but his eyes shone in the firelight. He understood. They both did. Back in the Varn city, the council was restless. A scout had returned, pale and shaking. "Something is moving in Black Hollow," he said. "I saw something riding the beast." The council laughed at first, but the room grew quiet when he repeated the words. "It was the human," the scout said. "He's alive." A murmur spread through the hall. "He was supposed to die. He has tamed the dread beast. No one can do that. Not even we could." The leader of the council, a tall creature with silver skin and black eyes, stood up slowly. "If the human is truly alive, and the beast follows him, we are no longer safe." Some wanted to send soldiers. Others wanted to hide the news from the people. But the truth was out. The myth of the human was growing. In Black Hollow, Ryan had changed too. His beard had grown. His arms were stronger. His mind was sharper. He had become more than just a soldier or a survivor. He had become a symbol. One afternoon, Ryan and Bran found a strange trail, blood on the stones, small prints in the dirt. Ryan followed the signs and discovered a group of slaves who had escaped the Varn mines. They were hiding in fear, hungry and weak. When they saw Bran, they screamed and tried to run. Ryan jumped down from the beast's back and raised his hands. "It's okay," he shouted. "I'm human. I won't hurt you." They froze. One of them, a young girl with gray skin and tired eyes, stepped forward. "You ride the beast," she whispered. "How?" "I earned his trust," Ryan said. "Like I hope to earn yours." He gave them food and water. He showed them how to build fire. Bran stayed at a distance, calm and quiet. That night, as they sat around the fire, the girl asked, "Will you go back to the city?" "Yes," Ryan said. "Why?" He looked into the flames. "Because they need to see what happens when you throw a human into darkness. And he walks out with the monster you feared most." Word spread fast. The escaped slaves spoke of the Kote, man who rode the beast. Some called him the Unbroken. Others simply called him Hope. More began to search for him. Small groups arrived in the Hollow, bringing stories, injuries, pain. Ryan helped them all. He taught them how to survive. He gave them strength. And slowly, an army began to form. No weapons. No war machines. Just survivors, believers, fighters. Stood as a guardian, silent, powerful, loyal. Ryan stood as a leader, strong, fair, fearless. One day, Ryan climbed the tallest cliff in the Hollow. The wind was cold, but his eyes were full of fire. Below him stood a group of almost 50. Exiles and slaves. He raised his voice. "They think we are broken. They think we are weak. But we are still here." A cheer rose. "They sent me to die," Ryan said. "But I made a friend. A beast they feared. And now he fights with me." Bran climbed the hill behind him and roared. The sound shook the rocks. Ryan raised a fist. "We ride at dawn." That night, Ryan sat beside Bran. He placed his hand on the beast's side. "We're ready," he said. Bran didn't move, but Ryan felt his chest rise and fall, calm and steady. Tomorrow they would leave the Hollow. Tomorrow they would return to the city that had laughed at him. But this time, Ryan would not come alone. He would come with the very monster they had used to scare others. And that monster was now his friend. The return. The sun had not yet risen when Ryan stood at the edge of Black Hollow, looking at the distant walls of the Varn city. A cold wind blew across the plains, carrying dust and silence. Behind him stood the ones who had followed him, escaped workers, exiles, fighters. They wore no armor, held no fancy weapons, but their eyes were sharp. Their hearts were steady. And beside Ryan stood Bran. The beast was ready. His black scales shone in the early light. His red eyes glowed with quiet fire. He no longer limped. He was strong again, stronger than before. Ryan stepped forward and raised his voice. "This is not a war," he said. "We are not here for revenge." The crowd listened quietly. "We are here to show them what it means to be unbroken. We were left to die, but we lived. We fought, we changed." He looked at Bran. "And now we return." He climbed onto Bran's back. The crowd parted, clearing the way. Bran gave a loud snort and then charged. The journey across the plains was fast. Bran moved like a shadow with fire in his bones. The wind screamed around them. The others followed on foot, quiet and determined. By noon, the outer towers of the Varn city came into view. Guards on the high walls pointed and shouted. Sirens began to scream. The city was under alert. Inside the city, panic spread like fire. "The human has returned. He rides the beast. He's leading others." The Varn Council gathered quickly in the tall white tower. "He should be dead," one of them hissed. The leader of the council stared out the window with narrowed eyes. He is not dead. He is something else now. Some wanted to send all forces to stop Ryan. Others feared making him a martyr. The people had already heard rumors. They were afraid, but also curious. Some of the lower workers even cheered when they saw the human riding in. He comes to attack. A soldier shouted. No, the council leader said. He comes to make a point, but we cannot let him win. Bran reached the city gates and stopped. Ryan stood tall on his back. Guards lined the walls, weapons ready, hands shaking. Ryan raised his hand. I came back alive. He shouted, and I did not come alone. Bran roared, and the sound echoed across the walls. The ground seemed to shake. The guards stepped back. Ryan looked up at the towers. You sent me to die. You thought I would break. But look at me now. No one answered. Ryan's voice grew louder. We are not your slaves. We are not your toys. We are humans, and we are not weak. A group of Varn soldiers marched through the main gate, weapons pointed. Ryan didn't move. Bran didn't flinch. Tall commander stepped forward. You will surrender, he said coldly. Ryan climbed down from Bran's back. He walked straight toward the commander. The soldiers raised their weapons. Bran growled, low and deadly. Ryan stopped only a few steps away. If you want to shoot me, he said, do it now. Silence. The commander looked at the beast, then at the crowd gathering behind Ryan. More were coming from the sides, exiles, workers, even some city guards. The commander stepped back. Ryan marched through the gate, Bran beside him. The crowd followed. They didn't burn anything. They didn't attack. They walked through the streets with pride. The people stared in shock. Some clapped. Some cried. Some simply stepped aside and watched at the central square. Ryan stopped. He looked up at the council tower. You hide in your halls, he shouted. But I am not afraid of you anymore. One by one, people began to gather. Not just exiles. Citizens too, workers, slaves, even a few guards. The square, filled with voices, whispers, then cheers. The council had lost its grip. Suddenly, the gates behind Ryan opened again. A group of elite guards marched in. Shining armor and sharp weapons. At their front stood the council leader. He looked angry, but not afraid. Is this your idea of a victory? He asked. Ryan faced him calmly. No, this is my idea of change. You broke our laws. Your laws were chains. You are just one man. Ryan pointed to the crowd. Not anymore. The leader raised a hand. Take him. The elite guards stepped forward. Bran moved first. He charged with a roar that froze every soldier in place. Ryan jumped forward, knocking down the first guard. The fight began. The crowd erupted. The exiles fought with sticks, stones, fists, and fire in their hearts. Ryan moved like a storm, every strike sharp and fast. Bran knocked down walls and scattered the enemy like leaves. The council leader tried to run, but Bran caught him, slamming the ground in front of him with one huge claw. Ryan stood over him. You used fear to rule, Ryan said, breathing hard. Now you can feel it yourself. The leader trembled, but Ryan didn't kill him. He turned to the crowd. No more blood. No more chains. Today we take back our freedom, not through killing, but through standing together. By nightfall, the fighting stopped. The Varn soldiers dropped their weapons. The people took control. The council was removed. Ryan stood in the center of the square, surrounded by people. Bran rested beside him like a giant dog, eyes half closed but alert. Someone asked, "What now?" Ryan looked around. Now we build something new, a place where no one is thrown away, where no one is feared for being different, where no beast is hated and no human is ignored. Cheers filled the air. He turned to Bran and smiled. We did it. That night, the stars above the city were clear for the first time in years. And from the high walls, the people watched a man and his beast stand side by side, not as monsters, but as legends. Rise of the Unbroken. The morning after the battle, the city of the Varn Dominion felt like a different place. The sky was clear, smoke no longer rose from the towers. There was no sound of orders being shouted, no guards marching through the streets. Just quiet voices and soft footsteps, like the city itself was trying to understand what had just happened. In the center of the city stood Ryan. His clothes were torn, his body bruised, but he stood tall. Bran rested beside him, calm but alert, eyes scanning the roads. The great beast had fought like a storm and now sat like a guardian of peace. People gathered in the square. Humans, Rin, other races the Varn had once ruled over, all were present. They looked to Ryan now, not with fear, not with doubt, with respect. With hope. One of the former slaves stepped forward. His voice shook a little. What happens now? Ryan looked at the broken statue in the center of the square, once a symbol of Varn power. It had fallen during the fight, shattered on the ground. We rebuild, he said. Not just the buildings, the way we live, the way we treat each other. Some whispered among themselves. A few still wore chains, not by force anymore, but by habit. Ryan noticed this and walked to them. He picked up a small tool and broke the first chain off a young girl's wrist. No more chains, he said softly. Others followed. One by one, the chains were removed and thrown into the fire. The city watched as metal turned to smoke. Later that day, a meeting was held in the old council hall. But this time, it was not only the rich and powerful inside. It was workers, farmers, engineers, elders from all species. Ryan sat with them, not above, but among them. We need leaders, one woman said. We need guards, said another. Not to rule, but to protect, Ryan nodded. We need rules, but not the kind that break people. Rules that protect the weak, guide the strong, and never forget where we came from. A vote was taken. A council was formed, not chosen by blood or power, but by voice. Each species had a seat. Each voice had weight. Ryan refused to take a throne. He stood when they offered it and said, I didn't fight to become king. I fought so none of us would be ruled by fear again. They offered him a title instead. The Unbroken. He smiled but shook his head. I'm just Ryan. But the people kept calling him that anyway, not as a name of power, but as a reminder of what one human, left to die, had become. As the weeks passed, the city changed. The slave pens were turned into schools. The training yards were opened. To all. Food was shared. Walls were cleaned. Songs were heard again, songs in languages that had been banned for years. Even the guards changed their armor, painting new symbols on their chest plates, not the Varn crest, but a simple mark. A circle with a line through it, showing chains broken. One day, Ryan stood with Bran on a hill outside the city. They looked down at the growing lights, the new colors, the laughter rising through the streets. You did good, Ryan said, placing a hand on Bran's strong shoulder. Bran growled softly and leaned into him. We did good, Ryan corrected. He could feel the change in the air. People no longer looked at Bran with fear. Children even played near him now, tossing small fruits his way. He never hurt them. He simply sniffed, snorted, and let them laugh. Bran had gone from terror to legend, but Ryan knew his time in the city was coming to an end. I was never meant to stay here forever, he said to Mira, one of the council members. She looked surprised. Where will you go? Out there, he pointed to the wild lands. Others are still suffering. Others are still living in fear. I want to help them, just like I helped here, she nodded slowly. You won't go alone, will you? Ryan smiled. I never do. Bran gave a deep rumble, as if agreeing. On the morning of his departure, a crowd gathered at the gates. There were no tears, just respect and thanks. Will you ever come back? A boy asked. Ryan knelt and placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. You won't need me to. Because now you know how to fight for what's right. He climbed onto Bran's back. The gates opened. And as the sun rose, they rode out together, man and beast, side by side. Not as outcasts, but as symbols. Of survival. Of strength. Of what happens when someone refuses to break. Final scene. Far across the galaxy, in dark places where people whispered about monsters and rebels, a name began to spread. The Unbroken. Not as a title of war, but of hope. Of a human who was thrown to die, and came back riding the beast they all feared, the end.